when a mall security guard spotted a frightened young girl being led away by a tense man in a charcoal gray jacket. He almost brushed it off as another everyday drama at Whitefield's Mall. But something in the girl's terrified eyes stopped him in his tracks. Before we dive into this story, let us know where you're watching from, and if you stand for the power of courage, hit that like button and subscribe for more. Adam Smith was 28 years old and new to his post at Whitefield's Mall. He had grown up in a nearby suburb, watching his single mother juggle 2 jobs while still finding time to encourage his interests. As a kid, Adam had loved the idea of protecting others, even if it was just keeping an eye on his younger cousins during family gatherings. Over time, he developed a moral compass that made him want to pursue security work or maybe law enforcement someday. This new position at Whitefield's Mall paid decently, but it wasn't exactly what he had imagined for himself. Still, it offered a chance to do some good, or so he hoped. On most days, his duties were uneventful. He asked loitering teenagers to move along, calmed down customers arguing at the returns counter, or helped lost kids find their parents. But on that day, everything changed. He first saw the girl around mid-afternoon. It was a slow weekday, and the crowd was sparse enough that he noticed details more easily. The girl appeared to be about 9 or 10 years old, with dark hair in a messy ponytail, wearing a pink jacket that looked slightly too large for her. Next to her stood a man in a charcoal gray jacket. He was tall, probably in his mid-30s, with neatly trimmed facial hair and a nervous energy about him. The girl clung to his sleeve, not in the way children often hold on to parents, but more like she was afraid to let go because she had no other choice. Adam had paused near a kiosk selling sunglasses. He nodded to the board attendant who was tapping on her phone. As a security guard, Adam tried to keep a low profile unless a situation called for immediate intervention. Mall-goers often felt uneasy if a guard stared at them too intently, so he learned to observe in subtle ways, eyeing their body language, the set of their shoulders, their pace of walking. Something about the tension between this man and the young girl sent a jolt of concern through Adam. It was the way she glanced around, as though looking for someone or something to save her. Her eyes darted toward Adam, and in that fleeting moment, he felt a plea, silent but unmistakable. He took a breath, walked over, and addressed the man with a calm, polite demeanor. "Afternoon, sir. You two doing all right? Need help finding a store?" The man twitched, almost startled. Then he forced a smile. "We're fine," he said. "My niece just isn't feeling well, that's all. She's a bit upset." Adam studied them. He couldn't exactly put a finger on it. Maybe it was the man's tense posture or the girl's trembling lip, but he could sense fear. "Is that right?" Adam asked quietly, trying to catch the girl's gaze again. "Hi there, sweetie. Can I help you with anything?" The girl opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Her chin trembled. The man subtly moved in front of her, as if to block her from Adam's view. "She's fine," the man repeated. "Just tired. We'll be on our way now." He produced documents, sheets of paper that looked official with some stamps and seals. He flashed them so quickly that Adam barely had time to read them. "I'm her legal guardian. Her parents are overseas, so I have full custody. Nothing to worry about, officer." Adam wasn't a real officer, just mall security, but the man chose that word, perhaps to flatter or to intimidate. Either way, Adam felt uneasy. "Understood," Adam said, maintaining a polite tone. "If she's not well, maybe you should let her rest in a quiet area of the mall for a moment, or see if the nurse's station at the corner might help." The man shook his head. "Thanks, but we're in a hurry." He placed a hand on the girl's shoulder. She looked up, and Adam noticed tears beating at the corners of her eyes. For a split second, Adam considered stopping them, but he had no legitimate grounds to detain the man. The girl wasn't yelling, there was no visible violence, and the documents, though Adam hadn't read them, looked legitimate enough. Mall management had made it clear that unnecessary confrontations were bad for business. Without strong evidence of a crime, he had to let them go. Adam watched, conflicted, as the man guided the girl down the wide corridor and out of sight. The tension in her face haunted him for the rest of his shift. He tried to focus on other duties, strolling past clothing boutiques and electronics stores, but every now and then he'd imagine her frightened eyes. The memory made him uneasy. That evening, he drove his old sedan back to his small apartment a few blocks away. After throwing together a quick dinner of instant noodles and microwave vegetables, he settled on his worn-out couch and stared at the TV without registering what was on. He couldn't stop thinking about that girl. She had never said her name, never said a single word. That silence tormented him. Finally, he picked up his phone and called a coworker, Manny, who had been working a different section of the mall that day. "You see a girl earlier? Pink jacket with a tall guy in a gray jacket?" Adam asked. Manny sounded tired. "A girl and a guy? Not sure, man, that describes half the folks who pass through. You all right? Something wrong?" Adam hesitated. "I'm not sure. It just didn't feel right." Manny chuckled softly. "Hey, you're new. You'll see kids having meltdowns, parents dragging them around, guardians losing patience. Unless you see actual abuse, we can't do much. Don't let it eat you up." Adam sighed. "Yeah, maybe you're right. Thanks." But Manny's reassurance didn't soothe him. He thought about calling the police to report suspicious behavior, but he knew they'd want details he couldn't provide. No license plate, no sign of physical harm. What could he say? "A man had some papers that looked real, but I got a bad feeling." They'd probably file it under an inconclusive tip. The next morning, Adam reported to his supervisor, Laura. She was in her mid-40s, with neatly coiffed hair and a firm, measured tone. Laura had worked in mall administration for years and prioritized keeping the peace and safeguarding the mall's reputation. For her, the bottom line was always preventing negative publicity. Adam described the incident in detail, down to the girl's fearful expression, but Laura shrugged. "Did you see the man hit her or threaten her?" Laura asked. "No," Adam admitted. "But she was clearly scared." "Kids get scared for all sorts of reasons," Laura replied. "Maybe he was just strict." "You said he showed you some documents, likely guardianship papers, right?" "No sign they were forged. I barely got a look at them, but yes, they seemed official." "Then we have no cause," Laura concluded. "If we start chasing everyone who looks suspicious, especially if they show up with a crying child, do you know how many lawsuits we'd face?" "Look, I appreciate your concern, Adam, but let's be realistic. If you see something more concrete, by all means, bring it to me. For now, keep an eye out, but don't push it." Adam nodded, though he felt deflated. He told himself to let it go, that maybe the man really was a stressed-out guardian dealing with a niece who was upset about something trivial. But he still remembered that silent plea in her eyes. For the next few days, Adam carried on with his routine. He patrolled the corridors, chatted with shop owners, and helped a couple of lost children find their parents in the food court. Each time he encountered a crying child, though, he found himself checking for that same expression of outright terror. He didn't see it, but he did notice a few odd occurrences. A child walking hand in hand with an adult who looked over his shoulder too often, a teenager who seemed to be glancing around anxiously as a middle-aged couple ushered her away. Perhaps these things happened all the time, and he was just hyper-aware now. Still, the seeds of suspicion were planted. One afternoon, as Adam was leaning against a pillar near the indoor playground, he caught sight of a man in a hoodie moving quickly through the crowd. He seemed to be guiding a boy who couldn't have been older than 8. The boy stared at the floor, his shoulders hunched, as if he wanted to vanish into himself. Adam took a step forward, intending to follow them, but he was interrupted by a nearby shop alarm going off. By the time he dealt with the minor shoplifting incident, the man and boy were gone. Adam's frustration grew. Later that day, a stranger approached Adam near the food court. "You're the guard who's been asking questions, right?" the man said in a hushed tone. He looked around 30, with short dark hair and the weary posture of someone juggling adult responsibilities. Adam nodded cautiously. I've asked a few questions. Why? The man offered his hand. Ben Carter, he said. I heard you were worried about a kid who might be in trouble. I might have something you want to see. Adam raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? Ben glanced around, making sure no one was eavesdropping. Can we talk somewhere quieter? Adam led Ben to a side hallway rarely used by customers, next to the staff elevators. The walls were bland, beige concrete, and the faint hum of air vents made their voices echo. Adam folded his arms. Okay, what's this about? Ben pulled out his phone. I was here with my daughter, Lily, a couple of days ago. She was playing in that little seating area near the electronics store, and I noticed a man practically dragging a girl out one of the side exits. She looked like she was crying. I tried to film it, but I only got a few seconds of video. He handed the phone to Adam. Adam watched the shaky clip. It showed the mall's side exit door with partial glimpses of a tall figure hustling a small child with a backpack. The child's face was mostly hidden, but her stance was clearly distressed. An SUV with tinted windows was parked outside. The camera jerked around, capturing only a fleeting image of the vehicle before it drove off. Could be anything, Ben acknowledged, but the way he was dragging her, it just felt wrong. I told another guard, but I don't think he took me seriously. Then I heard someone mention you were worried about a suspicious man with a child. He paused. You think this is the same situation? Adam's heart thudded. It might be, he said quietly. Her name might be Amelia. Or maybe it's another kid. I'm not sure. Ben frowned. So you've run into something like this before? Adam nodded. I saw a man with a girl who looked terrified. But I don't have much proof of wrongdoing. I appreciate you showing me this, though. Maybe it's more evidence that something's off. Ben gripped his phone. Look, I'm a father. If my daughter was being taken like that, I'd hope someone would speak up. That's why I can't let this go. Adam felt a surge of gratitude. I know how you feel. Let's see if we can piece this together. He paused, checking the empty hallway to ensure they were alone. My supervisor's name is Laura. I tried bringing my suspicions to her, but she wants concrete evidence. This video might help. Are you willing to show it to her? Ben nodded immediately. Of course. They made their way to Laura's office, a modest space in the administrative wing. Laura was typing away at her computer when they entered. She arched an eyebrow at the sight of Adam and a civilian visitor. Is there a problem? Adam explained, this is Ben Carter. He has video footage of a potential abduction in the mall. Laura's expression grew guarded. Let's see it. Ben held out his phone and played the clip. Laura watched, lips pursed. The footage was short, shaky, and the license plate on the SUV was unreadable. This doesn't prove anything conclusive, she said. Kids throw tantrums. That could be a parent hustling an unruly child to the car. Ben bristled. That child looked terrified. Laura shrugged. I don't see violence. We can't identify faces. No obvious kidnapping is on display. I'm sorry, but this isn't enough to alert law enforcement on an official level. Do you realize the kind of liability we'd face if we make a false claim of kidnapping? Adam felt anger simmering in his gut. So what do we do? Just wait until a child disappears permanently? Laura leaned back in her chair, folding her arms. I will keep this video on file. If something more concrete comes up, like a missing child report matching that description, then we'll have a reason to go further. Until then, we're dealing in speculation. Ben opened his mouth to protest, but Adam gently touched his arm, guiding him out of the office before he could escalate the argument. Once they were back in the hallway, Adam shook his head. She's worried about lawsuits, negative press, all that. This mall thrives on a calm image. Ben ran a hand through his hair. That's insane. You think she's trying to cover this up? Adam sighed. I'm not sure it's a cover-up. More like she's not willing to risk the mall's reputation on a hunch. Look, let's not give up. If we can find more evidence, Maybe the police will get involved. They exchanged numbers, agreeing to keep each other informed. Over the next few days, Ben texted Adam every time he was at the mall, describing small oddities he noticed. A suspicious woman in a red coat leading a child who looked dazed, another tinted window SUV idling in a far corner of the parking lot. Adam tried reviewing security footage during his off hours. Officially, he wasn't supposed to do that without permission, but Manny sometimes gave him a quick window to skim through the camera feed. In one snippet of footage, Adam spotted a tall man, possibly the same man with the charcoal gray jacket, leading a little boy through an emergency exit corridor. The angle and lighting were terrible. The boy's face wasn't clear, and the man wore a baseball cap. It was enough to deepen Adam's suspicion, but not enough to confirm anything. One morning, Manny approached Adam before the mall opened. "Hey, buddy, you know that girl you were worried about? Amelia, right?" Adam's eyes sharpened. "Yeah. What about her?" Manny held up a missing child flyer. "I heard from a friend in law enforcement. They sent these around. There's a girl named Amelia who was taken from her elementary school days ago. She's got dark hair, around 10 years old, last seen wearing a pink jacket." Adam's stomach twisted. He recognized the girl in the photo instantly. It was the same one he'd seen clinging to that man. "That's her," he said in a hushed voice. "So she's officially missing?" Manny nodded grimly. "This is serious." Adam wasted no time. He marched straight to Laura's office and slammed the flyer down on her desk. "This is the girl," he said, voice quivering with urgency. "She's not just upset or having a tantrum. She's missing." Laura paled as she read the flyer. "All right, so there's a missing person case. We'll cooperate with the police fully." Adam leaned over the desk. "We need to do more than that. We have multiple suspicious sightings, shaky footage, testimonies. Someone is using this mall to traffic children, forging guardian documents, handing them off in the parking lot. We need to alert the authorities immediately. They might still be bringing kids here." Laura hesitated, exhaling slowly. "I understand how you feel. I'll call the police detective assigned to the case. We'll give them whatever they request. But Adam, please be careful. This is bigger than you realize." He clenched his fist. "I know it is, but ignoring it won't help." True to her word, Laura did contact the detective on the missing persons case and handed over some of the relevant footage. But the police, already swamped and lacking clear, high-quality evidence, only took it under review. Days passed without any sign of immediate action. Adam seethed with frustration. That little girl, Amelia, was out there somewhere. The thought of her alone, scared or worse, kept him awake at night. Meanwhile, Adam and Ben continued their own quiet investigation. They noted times of day when the mall was less crowded, mornings and late evenings, when suspicious adults seemed to linger by side exits. They saw glimpses of different kids, none older than mid-teens, being ushered around by people who often had forced smiles or watchful eyes. Adam started carrying a small notebook, jotting down partial license plates, descriptions of jackets or hat. He tried to cross-reference them against camera footage, but always came up short. The ring, if it existed, was careful to avoid leaving evidence. Then one late afternoon, Ben texted Adam. "Overheard 2 men near staff hallway. Mentioned a Thursday drop at Bridgewood Park. Heard them say name Robert. Might be the same guy in charcoal jacket." Adam read the text multiple times, his pulse racing. A drop meant some sort of exchange. Maybe a final handoff. If Amelia was still in the area, that might be where they'd move her next. Adam met with Ben after his shift at a nearby diner. They talked in low voices over the clatter of dishes. Ben explained, "I was taking Lily to the restroom when I passed 2 guys talking quietly. They mentioned Robert not messing this up and Thursday drop at Bridgewood Park after sundown. It sounded shady." Bridgewood Park was a few miles from the mall, a mostly wooded area with a small parking lot, picnic tables, and a playground. After dusk, it would be nearly empty. A perfect place for criminals to exchange contraband or to trade a child. They considered going straight to the police with this tip. But they had no license plate, no time slot more precise than after sundown. The detective might again say it was too vague. Adam hesitated. If the ring is well connected, they could have lookouts in the police department. Or they might slip away if they sense a sting operation. Ben nodded grimly. So what do we do? Adam's voice shook. We do a stakeout ourselves. If they show up, we call the cops right then. We stall them until law enforcement arrives. Ben's eyes flickered with worry. That's dangerous, man. These guys could be armed. Adam took a moment to consider the risk. I know, but we can't just let them vanish with another child. If it's Amelia they're exchanging on Thursday, this might be our only chance to save her. Ben looked down at his coffee. I have a daughter. I can't stand by and let these monsters operate. I'm in. They agreed on a plan. On Thursday, they'd both claim family obligations and leave their workplaces early. Ben would drop Lily off with a babysitter to keep her safe. They'd head to Bridgewood Park before sunset, hide their car at a side street, and watch from a concealed spot. The second they saw a child in danger, they'd call 911. With luck, the police would arrive in time. Thursday arrived with a gloomy, overcast sky. Adam felt tension coil in his stomach the entire day. He told Manny he had some personal stuff to handle, which Manny suspected had to do with the suspicious ring. Watch your back, Manny warned. These guys might not play fair. Adam drove to the designated side street near Bridgewood Park. Ben was already there, sitting in his sedan. They greeted each other with grim nods. Adam had packed binoculars, a flashlight, and a first aid kit. Ben had his phone fully charged, ready to record or call for help. They walked quietly into the park, finding a vantage point behind a line of thick shrubs near the main parking lot. The sun sank lower, the sky turning shades of purple and red. The park emptied of joggers and dog walkers. Darkness crept in. For over an hour they crouched there, stiff and chilly. Adam's back ached, and he fought the urge to shift position. Every pair of headlights made them tense, but most turned out to be random cars passing by. The parking lot remained still, until suddenly, a black SUV rolled in, its lights briefly illuminating the deserted area. Adam's heart pounded. It looked a lot like the one in Ben's video. The driver parked beneath a tall oak tree, shadows obscuring the license plate. The driver's door opened and a tall figure stepped out. Even from a distance, Adam recognized the posture. It had to be Robert, the man in the charcoal gray jacket. Robert glanced around, scanning the darkness. The back door of the SUV opened, and a small figure emerged, short, slight, with a hood up. Adam's hands shook as he lifted the binoculars. He could barely see the child's face, but the figure's posture screamed fear. Another car, a dark sedan, pulled in. Two men got out, a heavy-set one and a wiry one. They walked up to Robert and the child. The men spoke in hushed tones, their body language agitated. One of them seemed to pass an envelope to Robert, while the other reached for the child. Ben whispered, "Oh God, that's a transaction." Adam swallowed hard. "We have to call 911. Ben fumbled for his phone and dialed, speaking in a near-silent voice. "Yes, we're at Bridgewood Park. There's a child abduction happening right now. Please send help, hurry." Robert and the two men must have sensed something, because the wiry man suddenly shone a flashlight into the bushes. Adam and Ben ducked, hearts pounding, but the beam of light slashed through the leaves. Robert's voice echoed, "Who's there?" Adam realized they were out of time. If the traffickers fled with the child, they'd lose them. He stood up, arms raised. "Stop. We've called the police. Let the girl go." Chaos erupted. The men cursed. The heavy-set one lunged forward, his fist swinging. Ben rushed out too, holding his phone to keep filming. "We don't want trouble," Ben shouted, "just let her go." The child whimpered, shrinking away from the men. Robert snarled, "I knew you were trouble," and he reached into his jacket. Adam's heart jolted at the thought of a gun. He dove to the side as the heavy-set man charged him. They grappled, feet skidding on the gravel. Adam took a punch to the shoulder, pain blooming, but managed to stay upright. Ben, trying to protect the child, got shoved to the ground by the wiry man. The child screamed, tears streaking her face. Robert snapped, "Grab her and get in the car." But as the wiry man yanked the child's arm, flashing red and blue lights appeared in the distance. Sirens wailed. "Police! Freeze!" a voice shouted, echoing across the lot. Pandemonium! The heavy-set man flung Adam aside and tried to sprint for the sedan. Ben scrambled to his feet, blocking the wiry man's path. An officer jumped out of a cruiser, weapon drawn. "Hands up! Now!" Robert pulled a gun. He aimed at the officers, perhaps hoping to scare them off. Several officers took cover behind their cars. "Drop the weapon!" they yelled. But Robert fired a shot, the bullet striking one of the officers in the leg. The officer collapsed, clutching his wound. That was the final spark. A flood of adrenaline surged among the responding cops. They radioed for backup, calling in a SWAT unit. Adam stared in horror as the child cowered, hands over her ears, while Robert waved the gun wildly. "Stay back!" Robert barked. "I'll shoot anyone who comes near." The SWAT team arrived with startling speed, vans pulling up, heavily armed officers pouring out. They spread out across the perimeter, shining blinding lights on Robert, the heavy-set man, and the wiry man, who all realized they were trapped. The heavy-set man dropped to his knees, hands up. The wiry man tried to run but was quickly tackled. Robert, gun trembling in his grip, glanced at the child, at the police, at Adam. For a moment, Adam saw desperation in Robert's eyes. Then Robert flung the gun aside, raising his hands. Officers rushed in, cuffing them. Paramedics treated the wounded officer, who was grimacing but conscious. Another paramedic tended to the terrified child. Adam recognized her now. It was Amelia. She was pale, shaking, tears streaking her cheeks, but she was alive. Ben hovered protectively nearby, reassuring her in a soft voice that she was safe. As the dust settled, the parking lot filled with the chaotic swirl of flashing lights and hurried voices. Adam stood off to the side, panting, adrenaline racing through his veins. He watched the SWAT officers secure the scene, their Kevlar and helmets a stark contrast to the tranquil park setting. He stepped closer to Amelia, wanting to comfort her but unsure if he should approach. One of the responding detectives recognized Adam from the earlier footage at the mall. "Smith, you all right?" he asked. Adam nodded numbly. "Yeah, I'm okay." He gestured to Amelia. "She's the one I saw at the mall." "The missing kid?" The detective nodded grimly. "We'll get her to safety. Looks like you and your friend just busted open something major." Ben approached, breathing hard. "I got the whole thing on video," he muttered, holding up his phone. "I recorded Robert firing at the officer too." "Good," the detective said. "We'll need every piece of evidence. This ring might be bigger than we thought." Amelia clung to the paramedic, looking around in terror. Finally, she spotted Adam, and her eyes grew wide with recognition. She didn't speak, just stared. Adam managed a shaky smile. "You're safe now," he whispered, though the paramedic shushed him to give Amelia space. In the following hours, more police arrived. They searched Robert's SUV, discovering forged documents, money, and other suspicious items. The heavy-set man and the wiry man were led away in cuffs, face down on the hood of a cruiser while officers read them their rights. Robert glowered at Adam from across the lot, but his expression was filled more with fear than anger. Adam realized that in that moment, Robert was just a cog in a bigger machine, and hopefully, the authorities would track down the rest. Amelia was taken to a nearby hospital to be checked for injuries. Adam and Ben gave statements to the police, explaining everything from the moment Adam first saw Amelia in the mall to the stakeout that night. When the detective asked why they hadn't come to the station sooner, Adam just said, "We did. Not officially, but we tried. No one thought we had enough evidence." The detective sighed, rubbing his temples. "Well, we have enough now. Good work." Laura arrived soon after, hair askew, face pale. She scanned the scene, the blinking lights, the battered men in cuffs, the injured officer. Adam saw her speaking with a policeman who gestured to the bullet casing on the ground. Adam wondered if she felt regret for not having pressed the issue harder from the start. She approached him as he was sitting on the curb, letting a paramedic inspect his bruised arm. "Adam," she said quietly, "I'm sorry." He stared at her, exhaustion pulling at him. "For what?" "For not believing you," Laura replied, her voice thick with emotion. "I was more worried about the mall's reputation than the possibility that a child was really in danger. I made calls once that flyer came in, but I could have done more sooner." Adam lowered his gaze. He felt angry but also too tired to lash out. "She's safe now, and that's what matters." He paused, letting out a long breath. "But there might be other kids who weren't so lucky." Laura nodded gravely. "I'll cooperate with the investigation fully. I promise." In the following days, the story exploded in the media. Headlines described how a mall security guard and a concerned father had uncovered a child trafficking ring. Reporters swarmed Whitefield's mall, hungry for any detail. Laura's initial reluctance became a point of controversy. Some believed she had tried to hush it up. Others claimed she was just following standard protocol. Either way, the corporate board forced her resignation not long after. Before she left, she turned over all the security footage Adam and Ben had ever requested, plus more. She even found older clips that suggested the traffickers had used the mall for months, forging custody documents to move children under the pretense of guardianship. Amelia's rescue was the first major blow to the ring. Robert and his accomplices were charged with kidnapping, human trafficking, and the attempted murder of a police officer. Under the pressure of a potential life sentence, some of them talked, revealing key locations, safe houses, and other members of the operation. Police raided multiple sites, rescuing several more children. Some had already been moved out of state, prompting the FBI to get involved. Amelia, meanwhile, remained under medical and psychological care. She had no local family, since her parents were overseas for work. The authorities eventually placed her in a specialized foster home. Adam visited her a week after the incident. She was still skittish around adults, especially men, but she recognized him. He brought a small stuffed bunny as a gift. She clutched it, tears in her eyes, and whispered, "Thank you." It was the first time Adam had heard her speak. He almost broke down right there in the hospital corridor, relief mingling with sorrow at all she must have endured. Ben often accompanied him on these visits, bringing his own daughter Lily sometimes, hoping Amelia might feel more comfortable seeing another child. Lily was a friendly, spirited girl of 8 who tried to share her crayons or show Amelia pictures of her favorite cartoons. At first, Amelia just watched quietly, but after a few visits, she managed a shy smile. It was progress, small but significant. The press labeled Adam and Ben as heroes, though both felt uneasy with that title. Adam gave a brief statement to local news, emphasizing that people needed to trust their instincts if they saw something suspicious. He urged the community to watch out for vulnerable children. For every success story like Amelia's, there might be others who never got that chance. The coverage also put pressure on local malls to increase security protocols. Whitefield's Mall, under new management, installed more cameras, introduced child safety training for employees, and set up an anonymous tip line. Lawsuits from families of rescued children threatened the mall's bottom line, but management decided that revamping security was the only way to rebuild public trust. Adam found himself at a crossroads. He loved the sense of purpose that came from rescuing Amelia, yet it also shook him. Every day, he saw the darker side of humanity he had previously only read about. He realized that as a mall security guard, his power was limited. However, the local police, impressed by his persistence and moral courage, invited him to apply for their academy program. At first, Adam hesitated, unsure if he was ready to become a full-fledged officer. But the memory of Amelia's grateful eyes gave him the final nudge. If he joined the police, he could help more children and hopefully uncover more rings before they caused harm. One afternoon, as Adam was cleaning out his locker in the mall's security office, Manny stopped by. "You sure about this?" Manny asked, arms crossed. Adam nodded, collecting his phone charger and a few personal items. "I am. There's nothing for me here anymore. After everything that happened, I can't just go back to telling kids not to run in the hallways." Manny clasped his shoulder. "Best of luck, man. You're doing the right thing." Over the next few weeks, Adam's departure became official. The new head of security threw a small gathering in the break room, thanking him for his service. Store managers popped in to shake his hand, telling him how their employees felt safer after seeing someone stand up for what was right, even if it meant breaking a few protocols. Ben dropped by with Lily, who gave Adam a homemade card with the words, "Thank you for helping kids," scrawled in bright crayon. Adam teared up, hugging her gently. On his last day, he visited the fountain near the mall's main entrance, where he'd often watch people mill about. He remembered seeing Amelia for the first time, uncertain whether to intervene. It felt like a lifetime ago, but in reality only a few weeks had passed. The reflection of the overhead lights shimmered on the water. Adam tossed a coin in, letting it sink to the bottom, wishing that no child would ever have to endure what Amelia did. It was a simple gesture, but it helped him feel a sense of closure. He drove to the foster home where Amelia was staying, parked on the quiet suburban street, and rang the doorbell. A kind-faced social worker answered, inviting him in. Amelia was in the living room, curled up on the couch with a book. When she saw Adam, she gave him a shy wave. He noticed she looked healthier, still quiet but less haunted. "How are you feeling?" Adam asked, kneeling beside the couch to be at her eye level. She closed her book, a children's story about a puppy, and shrugged gently. "Better," she murmured. "The nightmares are not as bad now." Adam felt a twinge of sadness, knowing a 10-year-old had nightmares about men with guns and forged documents, about being torn away from everything safe. "I'm glad," he said softly. I'm going to be a police officer soon, Amelia. I wanted to tell you. Maybe I can help other kids like you." She gazed at him, the corners of her mouth lifting in a small, hopeful smile. "You saved me," she said simply. Adam gently patted her shoulder, not trusting himself to speak without choking up. He left the foster home feeling a mix of gratitude and determination. The next phase of his life was about to begin. He started the police academy training a month later. It was intense, physical drills, hours of classroom instruction, studying criminal law. He struggled at times, but his motivation was unwavering. Every bruise or late-night study session reminded him of Amelia and the children still out there in danger. Throughout the months of training, the trial for Robert and his accomplices loomed. Subpoenas were issued for Adam, Ben, and even Manny as potential witnesses. The kidnappers' lawyers tried to argue entrapment or some technicalities to reduce charges, but the evidence was overwhelming. Ben's phone footage showed the men exchanging money, forcibly handling a child. Robert had fired at a police officer, an act caught on multiple body cams. The forged documents and testimonies from other rescued children destroyed any pretense of innocence. Adam took the stand, recounting in detail how he first saw Amelia, how he tried to report it, and how the final stakeout at Bridgewood Park ended with Robert's arrest. His voice shook at times, especially when describing Amelia's terror. The defense attorneys attempted to discredit him, suggesting he'd overstepped his bounds, that he had no official law enforcement authority, but it was futile. The jury sympathized with him and the victimized children, not with the traffickers. Ben's testimony corroborated everything, reinforced by his videos. The heavy-set man had already taken a plea deal, implicating the entire ring. Ultimately, Robert and the wiry man received lengthy prison sentences, with additional federal charges pending. The judge called their crimes inhuman and monstrous. Adam felt some measure of relief when the verdict was read, but he also knew this ring was part of a broader network. The fight against child trafficking wasn't over. After the dust settled, life took on a new rhythm. Adam completed his academy training, then joined the local police force as a rookie officer. On his first day, the press revisited the story, snapping photos of him in uniform. It was surreal. He insisted he wasn't a hero, just someone who couldn't ignore a child's fear. The community, however, embraced the narrative of the courageous guard-turned-officer. When he wasn't on duty, Adam sometimes visited Amelia, who was still under the care of her foster family. She was doing better in school, though she struggled with trust issues. The Fosters were patient, providing therapy and a stable home. Ben would occasionally bring Lily over to play board games with Amelia, gently coaxing her into normal childhood activities. Over time, Amelia opened up more, smiling during silly jokes, drawing pictures of animals, even going to a theme park once, though crowds made her anxious. Each small sign of normalcy gave Adam hope. Meanwhile, Whitefield's mall adapted new security measures. They hired additional guards and thoroughly trained them to spot warning signs of potential trafficking: children who seemed unnaturally silent or fearful, adults who became overly defensive if approached, repeated sightings of certain people with different kids each time. Manny became one of the leads in implementing these measures. He even consulted Adam for advice, wanting to learn from Adam's experiences. The changes didn't erase the mall's tarnished reputation immediately. Some shoppers boycotted it, calling it unsafe or complicit. Yet, ironically, the place was likely safer than ever. The new manager publicly apologized to the families involved, promising zero tolerance for suspicious activity in the future. Occasionally, Adam and Ben were invited to speak at local community groups or parent-teacher associations about how to recognize and report child trafficking. Adam hated public speaking, but he forced himself to do it. He recounted the night in the park, the guilt he felt for not stopping Amelia's abductor the very first day, and how important it was to trust one's instincts. Each time he saw people in the audience grow serious and thoughtful, he felt his message resonated. One evening, after a particularly grueling shift, Adam returned home to find a letter from Amelia's foster family. Inside was a simple crayon drawing: a little stick figure man in a security uniform, standing next to a girl in a pink jacket. Both figures were smiling. Underneath, in slightly wobbly letters, it read, "Thank you for saving me." Adam blinked back tears. He pinned the drawing to his fridge. It reminded him that every bit of effort, every sacrifice, every bruise was worth it. When the year mark passed since Amelia's rescue, Adam found himself reflecting on how much had changed. He was no longer the uncertain mall guard hoping to catch petty thieves. He was a sworn officer who had personally played a role in dismantling a trafficking ring and saving children from unimaginable horrors. The local news did a one-year-later piece, briefly re-interviewing him and Ben. They asked how Amelia was faring. Adam answered that she was in a loving foster home, recovering, and that while she had a long road ahead, the worst was behind her. The coverage ended with a brief segment on the continuing battle against child trafficking, encouraging viewers to stay vigilant. For Adam, that vigilance was now part of his daily life. Every time he went on patrol, he scanned the streets for signs of distress, ready to intervene. Some days, he'd help old ladies cross the street or respond to routine fender benders, but he never forgot the lesson that even a mundane environment, like a mall, could hide monstrous crimes. He carried Amelia's story with him like a badge of moral duty. Sometimes, when he felt jaded or discouraged by bureaucracy or the bleak nature of certain cases, he'd recall Amelia's trembling smile when she first recognized him at the hospital. Her quiet thank you echoed in his mind. It was a reminder that one child rescued was more than enough reason to keep trying, because ignoring evil didn't make it go away. Standing up, even when it seemed no one else believed, could save a life. Late one afternoon, Adam got off his shift and found a text from Ben. Hey, we're having a small barbecue at my place. Amelia and her foster family are coming. You should join. Adam typed back, I'll be there. When he arrived, the sun was setting over Ben's backyard, turning the sky a soft orange. Lily chased Amelia around the yard, squealing with delight, while the foster parents chatted with Ben's wife near the grill. Adam stood back, watching the girls laugh and tumble on the grass, a scene of pure childhood innocence. It warmed his heart to see Amelia laughing freely. Ben sidled up to him, offering a plate of grilled chicken. Never thought we'd be here when we were crouched in the bushes at Bridgewood Park, he said, shaking his head in amazement. Adam chuckled softly. A year ago, I didn't even think we'd save her in time. Now look at her. They watched as Amelia paused mid-laugh, spotted Adam, and gave a quick wave. He waved back, smiling. This was the peace he'd hoped she could find, a simple evening, free from fear, with supportive people around her. Despite all the darkness of the trafficking ring, the bullets fired, the nightmares endured, she was here, safe, building new memories. As the evening wore on, Adam helped gather plates and cups, tidying up as the kids ran in circles. He caught snippets of conversation. Lily telling Amelia about her new school project, Amelia shyly admitting she liked to draw pictures of flowers. Ben's wife complimented Amelia's drawings, saying they were as pretty as real blossoms. Adam realized that the best outcome of a rescue was seeing a child rediscover ordinary joys. By nightfall, the barbecue wound down. Amelia's foster parents thanked Ben and his family for the food and company. They gently coaxed Amelia into the car. Before she got in, she ran back to Adam and threw her arms around him, hugging him tight. He stood there, momentarily stunned, then returned the hug carefully, mindful not to crush her small frame. She pulled back, eyes shining. "Thank you for everything," she whispered. Adam swallowed the lump in his throat. "I'm proud of you," he said. "You're so brave." She offered him a glowing smile, then climbed into the back seat. Her foster father gave a friendly wave, and the car pulled away, tail lights disappearing down the street. Adam lingered on the curb, the summer night air filled with the buzzing of cricket. He felt Ben's hand on his shoulder. "Everything you did, it mattered," Ben said quietly. Adam nodded. "I know. I just wish we could do more. For the ones still out there." Ben sighed. "We'll keep our eyes open. Right?" Adam gazed into the darkness. "Always. I promise." Thanks for listening to the end of the story. If you've made it this far, please drop us a like and subscribe to the channel so we can continue doing what we love by making these heartwarming and emotional stories for you.